Hi, welcome to June TBR. So, I have been on and off in a reading slump since February. This is the beginning of June, and I'm still stuck. And that sucks. Lame poetry aside, I'm gonna go through the books that I'm going to be picking for this June. So, like I mentioned, I've been having some trouble with this on and off reading slump. However, that does not stop me from being ambitious as heck. So, I kind of have to already read 10 books, and that's sort of fixed. I can't do much about it. Will I be able to do it is a question that you and I are both going to navigate together throughout the month of June. But there's this tradition that I have where every June I try to read some books for pride. And I am really confused, okay? So, as I mentioned, I already have some books that I'll absolutely be trying to read this month, but I don't want to let go of my tradition. So, here's my workaround. I'm going to be picking my pride reads this month with my TBR jar. If you've seen my previous videos, you'll see that it is much emptier than before, and that is because I've handpicked all the books that I have that have LGBT characters and representation and all of that, and I've put them into this jar. And there are not that many books. I mean, there are more than enough books that I am completely confused and paralyzed about which ones to pick, but not so many that it fills up this jar. So I think I'll start with picking a couple of books from this jar, and then I'll go through all the other books that I have to read this month. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. So I've kind of forgotten what this book was about, but I do remember that it won the Stonewall Honor Prize, I think. And in fact, actually, this miniature does not have it, but my copy, I think, has that on the cover. So, and I think it's set in like olden, like Bridgerton, Pride and Prejudice, 1900s. And it features, I think, a gay character in the first book, and then a lesbian character or a sapphic character in the second book. And then I've completely forgotten what the third book was about, nor do I own it. But this is the first pick. I think I'm going to pick three books, okay? Just so that I have a little bit of choice in case I'm not able to go through them all. Okay, so this is my second pick, and it is Loveless by Alice Osman. So technically, this is the final book in the Osman verse that I own. Like, I think you've got Radio Silence before this, and then Radio Silence, I Was Born for This, and then we've got Loveless. I will have to look up if I can read these books out of order or not, but actually was hoping to get this one because this is about an asexual character. So that's the second book that I've picked. And then finally, this is the final pick. Hold on. Oh, it's the Odyssey. So the Odyssey is already on my TBR, and I don't actually explicitly know if this features any like representation per se, but it's ancient Greece. Come on. So I'm gonna set it aside and I'm gonna pick a different book because the Odyssey is already on my June TBR. Okay, so this one, ooh, The Priory of the Orange Tree. I was kind of hoping I would get this because even though it is a tome, even though it's like 800 and something pages, I kind of wanted to read this. This is an epic high fantasy based on, I think it is Chinese mythology. Please correct me if I am wrong. And it has dragons, and I think the main characters are sapphic or something. So I think I'm finally gonna like stop running from this book and pick it up. So those are my three like Pride Month picks. And other than that, as I mentioned, there are 10 other books that I'm looking forward to read. I've got 8 of them with me right here. So let's breeze through those. So first of all, I'm doing this year-long Shadowhunter Readathon where we're trying to read all the Shadowhunters books in a particular order. I particularly am doing this readathon because I want to read the 17, 18, 19 books in publication order in the Shadowhunter universe, but I read those books a decade ago and I've kind of forgotten most of what happened. So I am rereading most of these books just so I can get to the ones that I want to read. Now here's the thing, I sort of fell off the wagon in April. So I just completed the April read earlier in May, and so now I still haven't read any of the May books. So I'm hoping that instead of 2 books a month, I'll do 3 books a month for the next couple of months, and that'll bring me back on track. And so that is why the first 3 books that I am picking in June are going to be The Clockwork Angel. This is the Infernal Devices trilogy. So this is Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, which were the books that I was actually supposed to have read in May, and then Clockwork Princess. So in June, I'm supposed to read Clockwork Princess and one of the City of something, City of Glass, City of Ash, City of Throne, City of Fire, City of Heavenly, something. City of the original Mortal Instruments, the second trilogy in that 6-part series. So I'm supposed to start there, but I think I'll let me just get through these first, and then we'll think about those. So these are the 3 books that I'm going to be picking for the Shadowhunter Readathon. Then I am going to be reading as many renditions of the Odyssey as possible before the movie comes out. So I am vaguely familiar with the Odyssey, like the story and the journey and all of that. I have listened to and keep listening to Epic the musical over and over again. I am obsessed. I think in the Odyssey Christopher Nolan movie, I'm gonna be disappointed by the lack of songs, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, and I've read and reread The Sea of Monsters in the Percy Jackson books. So that is very loosely based on the Odyssey, which I realized when I grew up and reread that book earlier this year. So it's, I think, finally time for me to have my actual proper interactions with the Odyssey. And so at the book fair this year, I got a bunch of copies. So first of all, I'm hoping to read this retelling of the Odyssey by Stephen Fry. And I want to pick this one first because this is prose and not like the translated poems, which the original is. So it's actually a retelling, sort of. So I think I'm going to start here, and then I want to read this Penguin Classic translation. So this is translated by E.V. Ryu, and the revised translation is by D.C.H. Ryu with an introduction by Peter Jones. So this is in the poetry format of, like, couplets and stuff. And this is 300 and something pages, and honestly I'm scared. And then hopefully, if not in June, then in July I'll be reading the best one, which is The Odyssey, translated by Emily Wilson. And this is my first book that has deckled edges, and I'm really obsessed. And this one is almost 600 pages, which is terrifying. But I've also recently come to find out that apparently Christopher Nolan's movie is also based on this edition. So that's gonna be cool, and that's why I want to read it as close to the movie as possible. And yeah, I'm terrified. Let's just leave it at that. But yeah, I thought I had plenty of time until the movie came out, and then I realized that June is here. The movie comes out in July. So even though I would like to pick more of these books, I'm gonna have to stick with those. And then finally, there are some books that I am reading with my book club friends and slash or will read at their behest. So first of all, I am already reading Babel with friends from my book club. We're actually supposed to read it like approximately 100 pages for every 2 weeks. And at that pace I would finish this in July, but I have started enjoying this book, and I am honestly hoping to finish this in May itself, but I am not at all optimistic that that's going to happen. So I'm probably going to be carrying forward this book into June. So I am going to read Babel, and right now I want to say I think I'm going to finish this in June, but you know what, let's see what happens. Then a friend of mine from book club has been recommending Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson to me for a few weeks at least. So I think I'm going to borrow the book from her and read it. I've never read a single Brandon Sanderson book before this, so I am cautiously excited, but also a little bit overwhelmed by all the books that I'm reading. And then finally, I have convinced a book club friend to pick up The Hunger Games because he reads a lot of sci fi. So I was like, why don't you switch over to dystopia? And hopefully, I can convince him to read not just the original trilogy, but also The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And then finally, for my agenda for my evil plan, I can get him to read Sunrise on the Reaping, and then we'll all go watch the movie together. Actually, this friend is the one who convinced me to read Project Hail Mary, and then a bunch of us from book club went and saw that movie together. So I'm actually honestly scheming and trying to get even more people involved into the Hunger Games craze. But I did promise my friend that I would reread the book with him if he read it. And y'all, he turns out to be a man of his word. So here we are. I think I'm gonna be rereading The Hunger Games. I don't think this should take me that long because I've read it so much when I was younger. But then I thought, why not do like a good annotated, in-depth reading? Look at some of the videos that people are making where they're doing in-depth analysis. And I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, but I think I'm going to be doing this to myself because then I think it will be a lot of fun to analyze and overanalyze the movie when it comes out in November. And finally, I am also in the middle of Atomic Habits, and I'm also in the middle of two non-fiction books actually, Storyworthy and Atomic Habits. And I would love to finish Atomic Habits, but honestly, with all of these books, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but it's still on the list. So I also hope that I'll be able to finish Atomic Habits. And that's all of the books that I'm hoping to read this month. Wish me luck, y'all. Wish me luck. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. And if reading and books is something you're interested in, I love yapping about books all the time. You can even hit me up and I would love to have a conversation with you. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye. And it's been so long that I've forgotten what this is about. And there's someone at my door. I want to read this Penguin classic carrying forward. Carrying. So I'm probably going to be carrying Mistborn by Brandon Sandin. What is his name? I have never read any of the books by Brandon Sandin. I'm actually in the middle of two. Mama, एक second.